PMF is also seen in retention numbers, which are great.
The word here is convenience. Being quick is a form of being convenient. You're staying in a hotel and you call for room service. And it's the same format. Snabbit is democratizing the access, creating economic value for everyone. Very honestly, there's one new startup in this space every week.
The fact that you clearly understand that depth is extremely important in hyperlocal businesses versus breadth.
I think it's our battle to lose rather than anyone else's to win. We're very slow with hiring.
That sounds like us.
So you need to build a model that does not operate at 90% attendance, it operates at 70% attendance.
Let's say we are having this conversation 5 years out. What does Snabbit look like? Hi, welcome to another episode of Lunchbreak with Lightspeed. I'm Romit.
Hi, I'm Rahul.
And we are very excited to host Aayush, the founder of Snabbit, who is here to demystify the secrets behind 10-minute home service as a category.
Welcome, Aayush.
Thanks,
great
Rahul.
to have you here. So let's get started with a very, very important question, which is, in a world where humans are getting replaced by AI, you are building a business which is all about humans.
Yeah.
And delivering home services with humans. Why are you choosing to go against AI?
I think there are some things which will never get replaced, right? We'll still eat food, we'll still go to bed, we'll still need a vehicle to travel around. Just like a lot of things which will never get replaced but augmented. I think this is an experience which requires physical touch, feel and real life experience. And I think we're just solving one of the biggest problems India has, and I don't see any AI solution to that. Why don't you tell me of one?
Well, I hope not. But all jokes aside, look, home services is not a new category, right? Home services have been around for a while, but I would say that, despite multiple players having attempted this category, in the last 10 years, I think we've barely scratched the surface, right? And some people say, maybe the time doesn't exist, right? Is that a question in your head? How do you think about it? Why did you want to jump into this category, despite the fact that I would say that very, very large scale businesses have so far not been built?
I think what one might see as a limitation is an opportunity for others, right? So let me just dissect and make clear out how consumption in India really works. The top 6 categories, which account for 90% of discretionary income in India, are basically e-commerce, mobility, groceries, food delivery, travel and services. Now I've taken 6 names. Services happens to be the second highest spend category per urban household, which is now roughly around 2x of what an urban household spends per year on say logistics or food delivery. And out of these 6 categories, 5 of them have been highly digitized. So we're looking at 20, 25, 30% digital penetration. So really large internet outcomes have been created in the first 5 categories that I just mentioned. Services is a $45 billion annual spend category if you just look at the top 60 million households with less than 2% digital penetration. So the way I like to put it is that this is urban India's last major offline habit that we're now trying to digitize. The reason that honestly this was not disrupted previously was because of the fact that I don't think the right supply chain or the right model was cracked in this case. So and we've seen it time and again. Like look at groceries. Until quick commerce really happened and disrupted, the way in which consumption trended was offline first. And it's only when 10-minute deliveries actually found real product market fit within the Indian households is when the category really took off.
Yeah.
So I think that for a large scale category in India to be disrupted, there are 3 things that are required: the right team on day one, the right business model and the right capital, because you need to make enough mistakes and you need to survive it. And I think that's what those 3 things added up in our case. If you look at our operating system, and on-demand hyperlocal model was not explored. Everything was either subscription first, or it was agency first, or it was planned and scheduled. Now the question is that while a lot of people have built in home services, is it large enough? Is the TAM large enough? Very deep, very clear insight that we have. In India, the predominant form of consumption follows the pattern of high frequency and low AOV. So I genuinely believe that if you're selling something at $3 in India, like a 200, 300, 400 rupees price point, versus you're selling something at a 2,000, 3,000 rupees price point, in the former case, the TAM and the frequency both shoot up by 30, 40 times. And we've seen it play out. Whether you look at a Rapido in mobility, whether you look at a Blinkit in quick commerce, we've seen high frequency, small, low AOV use cases take off disproportionately in India. And if you compare it to the West, it's very different. Like quick commerce globally has not done as well as it has in India, right? And services is no different.
Yeah.
Before Snabbit, there was no high frequency, low AOV organized player operating in this category. And while urban companies done a phenomenal job in building out like a great business and services, they were operating at the far end of the spectrum, which was exactly the opposite. So what we are targeting is at the core of Indian consumption. To say the next time you need someone to do an everyday chore or run an errand, you Snabbit, because that's something you'll need like 10 times a month versus a deep cleaning service which you'll probably need when you're moving in or right before a festival. So I think that Snabbit is building at the core of Indian consumption, which didn't happen before, and that we'll all be positively surprised with the TAM that we'll see.
Look, we've seen this high frequency, low AOV thing work in grocery, in mobility, and now in our category in home services. The low AOV piece though begs the question, how will profitability work? But we'll get to that, as we spend a little bit more time talking about it. But first, what you mentioned is a great segue into the fact that you were first out the gates. You were the original innovator, and Snabbit launched this category first, and multiple other players replicated it to the extent that I know a lot of people may not know this, but on the day that you were getting married, somebody chose to launch in your market as a competitive play, timing it very well. So question is, A, how did it impact your wedding celebrations? And B, how does it feel to get replicated so quickly? And what does that tell you about, how do you build competitive differentiation here?
So I think I'm happily married now, so all good. Yeah, I think I reached my ceremony a bit late, so my wife still complains that we missed the sunset photos. But
okay.
That's the only problem.
Well, there is AI for that though.
There is AI for that, so probably not a big problem anymore. But look, honestly, the way I'd like to put it is that we built the gates. There was a wall, we broke it down, built the gates, and now people are entering through it. So I'm super happy about it, right? I think we are disrupting for the country and we're constantly innovating. I would have had a bigger problem if no one really took notice. Because if I'm saying that this is a $100 billion category which has like $98 billion of offline transactions and no one's disrupted it yet, and here's the playbook, someone needs to copy it for me to be saying the truth, right? So I just find a lot of validation in the fact that there's been so much traction. Back in 2024, when I was launching this category out of my 1 BHK, all questions that I got and all the apprehensions and the conjecture and the skepticism that I got pointed towards the direction that this has been done before, what different are you doing? And today this is the fastest growing consumer category. So we've clearly done things well, and the fact that new startups have emerged in this category, the fact that larger incumbent players have taken notice and been very aggressive, all of it validates the hypothesis that we have. So honestly, I think a hyper competitive space is good for overall org building. I can say that ever since other players started getting in, we've moved faster. So they've also pushed us, and I think it's going to be exciting as this category evolves.
That's great.
And Aayush, it's been like almost 2 years since Snabbit launched. I'd love to understand for you, what does PMF look like in this category? And of course, there is the numbers and, you could share some of that, but we are also interested in hearing about the human stories behind those PMF.
So, at least like in the first 1 year, when we were finding PMF, right? It's like finding something that doesn't exist, that has a different definition every time you speak to a new person. So at the end of the day, the definition that I took away in the first 6 months of trying to understand how to look for PMF is that you'll feel it, you'll know it, right? You just know you've hit PMF. And I think for us, that penny drop moment was post Diwali last year. So we launched around April, 2-3 months in just building and getting initial traction. And then we were having one festival after the other. So we could not really differentiate between festive demand and non-festive demand. And I've obviously learned a lot more about festivals in that process. But for me, it was very clear that, November, December is when there's absolutely no festivals. People are traveling. It's a very different kind of a vibe. And I said, at this point in time, if people still need us and they keep coming back on the platform, right? I think at that point, it really makes, we're really doing something, solving a problem. So that is when I truly started feeling PMF, because we weren't really aggressively marketing. People were finding out through organic word of mouth. They were loving the service. I personally managed customer support at that point, and I would talk to customers. And when customers start giving you blessings, and they're not talking about complaining about price, etc., but they're like, you have solved such a big problem for us. I hope this company does well. I think that's when you know you're PMF is a tactical transactional term, but I'm saying you're solving a problem for people that will help you build something that will outlast you. I think that moment is when I really thought that, we'd hit true PMF. PMF is not seen in retention numbers. PMF is felt. That is let me put it that way.
PMF is also seen in retention numbers, which are great. So
which was seen in first month, but
Yes.
then you're asking questions as in is it early adopters?
Yes.
Then you're asking questions to yourself. But the moment you start feeling it and you actually, I would say everything around you starts pointing you towards the fact that you're actually building and it's solving a problem. I think that's when you're able to internalize it better.
Ayush, one of the internal theses that we have had at Lightspeed is that Quick enables new form of user behavior, right? You may be doing this behavior offline, but the fact that something comes to your home, in a matter of minutes, allows new user habits to be formed. What is it that you're observing in your customers because of this?
Yeah, I think the word here is convenience, right? Like being quick is a form of being convenient. And when you are able to organize a category, right, which was earlier offline. So what is offline related to? Offline is related to inaccessibility, price opacity, right? No closure of feedback loop, so quality is not guaranteed. Now, the moment you're organizing it, you're taking away all the headache, right, from the consumer, which when at this point in time, the consumer is now starting to find new ways of using the service. Let me give you an example. Traditionally, one would say that house help as a category, it's the cleaning, dishwashing, laundry that people use us for. When we talk to customers and when we're talking to mature customers, the fact that, an average expert arrives within 8.5 minutes, right, literally means that if a bowl of milk is spilled on the floor, the next time you might just ask Snabbit to just help you out. Like if I were to tell you that, you're staying in a hotel and you call for room service, right, and it's the same format, a room service problem, that the bellboy or the housekeeping attendant takes 10 minutes to arrive at your doorstep, even in the top 5-star hotel. It actually means the same thing in your house, that you can now book through an app and someone will turn up at your doorstep in 10 minutes. At that point, every small activity that you don't want to spend your time doing gets outsourced. And that's a habit that, we're not used to. So I call it it's an on-call service where you're almost having a full-time help because access has been democratized. It's in few minutes.
And that's why maybe it's unlocking a lot of use cases which so far have not been.
Yeah, customers are using us to unpack their suitcases. Customers are using us to chop onions because who wants to chop? Everyone wants to just toss everything in a pan. Customers are using us to peel pomegranates. So we're also unlocking, basically what they're doing is they're saying that, look, this is a job that, we might want to outsource because I want to spend time with family. I want to attend a Zoom call. I want to just sleep an extra hour, whether be productive, whether be lazy. But eventually I want to have someone do it who I can rely on. And I think Snabbit is democratizing the access, creating economic value for everyone involved in the process.
So Ayush, of course, Snabbit has been on a tear. We invested in the company sometime mid this year around May, and we're sitting 5 months out. Frankly, looks like a different company in terms of scale altogether. So tell us, what's the scale like today, and how should we think about, or how do you think about the market share that Snabbit has in this segment?
Yeah, I think, this category has obviously, ever since we did our Series A, we've seen immense traction. And I think we're just fortunate that we got 1 year of quiet to build before, I think the storm erupted. But we were, just to give context, we were roughly doing 1,000 orders in May. Yeah. Today we're doing more than 10,000 orders every day. We're going to clock somewhere around 3.2 lakh orders this month. And I think that's basically because we have very, very strong playbooks, both on the demand and the supply side. And I think the fact is that today we're live across 40 micro markets, and in more than 75% of the micro markets we are leading. So we're market share leaders despite all the competition we keep talking about. At the end of the day, a hyperlocal business is built on the sole metric of depth, because at the end of the day, utilization only increases if you're able to have enough depth within a micro market. Yeah. And I think that has been our core focus. So we've not distributed ourselves too much. We've just focused on 40 micro markets, and we continue to lead in most of them. Yeah. Growing double-digit week on week. And I think it's just a function of obsessing about what the experience we are providing, because very honestly, there's one new startup in this space every week. And I've honestly lost count and we've stopped tracking. But I think if you just keep on, if you're executing well, you'll end up winning it. If you're not executing well, then someone will definitely win it. So I think the onus is on us not to. I think it's our battle to lose rather than anyone else's to win. And I think that's how we make sure that we keep our heads in the game.
Yeah, and that's a sharp insight that both Rahul and I had found very compelling. The fact that you clearly understand that depth is extremely important in hyperlocal businesses versus breadth, because while breadth can give you a great top line or headline number, the quality of that number is not good enough until you solve for utilization and you solve for depth. And I think that's exactly what we believe is the right thing to solve for, and that's exactly what Snabbit is doing.
Yeah, just to give you context, like Powai, which was our oldest micro market, does 1,000 jobs a day.
Yeah.
Which means that in the process of doing those 1,000 jobs, my average transit time, my average transit distance has gone from 350 meters to 150 meters. Which means that though the time spent to travel those extra 200 meters is now getting monetized, which actually aids into your profitability.
Yeah.
So utilization is a very important metric. Utilization is primarily aided by increasing density of demand, which is basically when you go deeper into micro markets. And I think that's been a core focus for us.
Yeah. Ayush, I want to touch upon what Rahul was referring to earlier.
Yeah.
How do we think about a business model that is high frequency but low AOV? What does it take to make that profitable? So how do you think about that in context of Snabbit, and are we seeing early signs of that?
So I think Snabbit as a business model is very unique, and one needs to understand how it works, right? We do not have fixed costs. We do not even have semi-fixed costs, very few, right? So we don't have warehousing, we don't have inventory, we don't have third-party logistics. So if you want to imagine our model, it is more mobility. It's more like, I would say, a Rapido or an Uber is a great example. When your model is highly variabilized, right, AOV is not a very important metric. Average order value is an important metric when there are fixed costs that get attributed. So you want to have maximum throughput. Like for an example, if a delivery boy is transporting a parcel from, say, a restaurant, then he's charging he's being paid the same amount of money for that delivery, no matter what the value of the food parcel is. At that point, maximizing that food parcel value is very important. In our case, that doesn't happen. We do not have a very high list of costs associated with services. So for us, average order value being low is not a problem. For us, the metric that really matters is how well are we able to utilize the supply that we currently have. Which is why this context is important, because we look at our P&L very differently as compared to a lot of other consumer internet categories. And in our business, as long as you're able to hold utilization at 70%, 60-70% level, this is the most profitable business model that exists. So what I'm trying to anchor is that one metric can completely build or break the business. And we are seeing our utilization at 60% plus in mature micro markets consistently.
Yeah. How do you define utilization, just so that our viewers are also clear with that?
So utilization is basically that you have supply hours.
Yeah.
So you have 10 experts who are logging onto your platform for 8 hours. So that means you have 80 hours. Because you need to ensure that these experts are making a certain amount of money every month, you need to guarantee some payouts, right? Otherwise, why would anyone be around? Now that you have committed a certain amount of money to these experts at a monthly level, how well you're able to use those 80 hours, or what portion of those 80 hours you're able to monetize by actually selling it to customers, creates the entire arbitrage. So if that number or if that factor is 40%, it's a horrible business. If that model is 70, if that number is 70%, it's a great business. The entire gamut of this business model revolves between 40 and 70%. If you're at 40%, you're not going to be take rate positive ever. If you're at 50%, you're going to be take rate neutral. If you're at 60%, you'll break even. If you're at 70%, you'll basically make 20% take rate, 15% operating profit, 8-10% PAT. That's basically this business model, and that's why we should talk more about utilization and less about AOV.
Yeah. No, I think actually that's a great point. And one of the interesting things that we have noticed is that despite heavy competition, in older micro markets, we're seeing that walk play out very clearly.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit more about that, right? How have you sort of sustained that in face of heavy competition to get to that utilization number?
Who said competition is heavy? It's just it's like, I think the principles are in the supply chain. It does not have much to do with the competition. Obviously, with competition, what you're saying is that, how do your customers continue to come back, and how frequently are they transacting with you in the presence of other players who are probably discounting or acting irrationally. But for us, what really matters is how is your network design done? How accurately are you able to select hotspots? So look at demand maps, look at heat maps, place hotspots strategically, plan for supply very strategically, right? How do you map out your consumer peak hours of demand with peak hours of supply? So I think the way to crack this model is not on the consumer front, it's more on the supply front. It's more on the supply chain, which we control very heavily. We spend a lot of time in network design, creating demand hotspots, planning for supply, using all the past data that we have, and then shaping our supply that mimics our demand curves. And when you're able to shape your demand supply basis demand curves, that's when you have high utilization. So in hours when there's low demand, you should have low supply. In hours where you have high demand, you should have high supply.
Yeah.
I think
perfectly fits the mobility analogy actually.
Exactly. Yeah.
Actually, that's interesting. So maybe let's switch gears towards supply a little bit, right? What have you learned about supply now that you've worked with, 5,000-6,000 experts by now?
Yeah.
What have we learned about them? What are they looking for? How are we able to create enough supply to meet our demand? Because I genuinely believe there is enough and more demand waiting for us out there. And that's apparent every time we launch a micro market. It's also apparent every time my family asks me, when are you launching in Delhi, which you still haven't. But I think there is a lot more demand waiting out there for us. So how do we shape the supply? What have you learned about that?
I think it's like any of us, right? When I'm doing a job, what am I looking for? I'm looking for stability. So I know that, I'm going to get paid if I turn up to work every day. I'm looking for a decent enough payout so that I can take care of whatever costs I have, living expenses I have. I want to make sure that, when I turn up to work every day, people respect me for what I'm doing, right? That's true for all of us in this room. I think we're doing the same thing for our experts. So while we spend a lot of time talking about how we're democratizing this category for our customers, we're doing the same thing on the supply side as well. Which means that this is a great place for our experts to come and work. Why? Number one, for the same unit of hour worked, they earn more on our platform versus offline. And why is that? We are a tech-enabled platform that aggregates demand in closed residential clusters, allocates it in real time, and by virtue of this allocation is able to deliver convenience within minutes to customers. When we do that, we charge a slight premium, most of which we share with our experts. So now the experts, by virtue of being within this platform, are actually earning more. So that's number one. Number two, flexibility. We have 100% female cohort. Most of them are secondary breadwinners in their family. By design, secondary breadwinners in any family are supposed to take care of any exigencies. Your child is unwell, your in-laws have come home, there are guests over. Anything goes wrong, the primary breadwinner goes to work, the secondary breadwinner stays back. So what they require is flexibility. On our platform, for as long as you're available 70% of the days, we don't even ask you if you are taking leaves. You can simply mark yourself absent. That doesn't exist offline. Like if a traditional house help does not show up or to work on 10 days of the month, she will not be employed anymore. But we understand that it's not because she doesn't intend to work. It's because she has to take care of 10 different things. She might be unwell. She might be going through a menstrual cycles. All of these things have to be built into the model as design rather than as issues.
How much of this was apparent on day one, and how much have you iterated and learned over the last couple of years?
On day one, none of this was apparent because I was a customer, so I was solving for the customer. But what transcended after that was we had 10 experts sitting in my 1 BHK for 30 days. So I used to have my meals with them. I used to interact with them. I used to hear them talk. And every day they didn't show up, I would actually call and understand what happened. And that's when I started realizing that as customers, we get very frustrated when our house help doesn't turn up. But if no one really bothers to understand the deeper story. But when we started understanding, we said that, look, this is happening, right? If the child is unwell, the husband will go to work, the wife will stay back. So you need to build a model that does not operate at 90% attendance, it operates at 70% attendance. And that's okay. I think these things became more and more apparent for us as I spent more time in the initial days with our experts in person.
Got it. It's very cool because I would say in the 0 to 1 stage, that is what a founder needs to do. Now that we are ramping, now that we are scaling, you can't be doing all of this.
Yeah.
So how are you thinking through how should you build the right kind of talent in your company, the right kind of team across levels, which can enable this sense of paranoia around both customer and supply for the longest period of time, and we build in congruence with that?
So I think the concept of hearing your customers and supply does not change. I think the medium changes. Let me give you an example. As I said, on day one, I was sitting with them in person and doing this. Now we have thousands of experts, so I can't go and sit somewhere. But what I can definitely do is if I can read all reviews. So every morning, like just talking about the customer side, for example, every morning there's a paper on my desk which has all the complaints that we get from customers across all platforms, and I read them. And then I take a highlighter and I just mark out keywords. And trust me when I say this, there will be patterns. So we can understand that there are these 3 areas we need to work on, and then you go and work on them. So I may not be able to interface with them as a customer support agent, which I was doing on day one, but I can definitely go through the 4, 5, 10 negative reviews that we get every day and actually work on that. So I think that as the founder, I don't think at any point of time I should get distanced from the customer or the expert. So surprise visits. One thing that I always do is I keep booking our service. So when the expert comes, it's a great conversation.
But more broadly, what's your philosophy around building the team or talent?
We handpick talent. I would like to put it that way. When I say handpick, it's not like running a regular recruitment process. Through talent, we're never solving the 3-month problem. We're taking a very long-term view on people. So I am basically I'll give you an example. Trust and safety. Right now, one could argue that we're just doing 10,000 orders. How much should we invest in trust and safety? But the idea is that when we're building out this team, we're looking at it from a 5-year point of view. We're saying what practices or what systems need to be built today so that when we're doing 500,000 orders a day, things don't break. So I think the first thing is take a long-term view on talent, because in the short term your answers will be wrong. Number 2 is that we do not hire in desperation. And it's a great, I would say, I've made that mistake, and I've learned from it, that no matter how internally desperate you are, every time you're judging a candidate, make them go through the entire process, spend enough time, and soak in all the pain that in the process that you might go through, to make sure that you get that hire right. Actually, hiring is the wrong word. I think you get the person right, because if you get that person wrong, firstly you'll wait for them for 2 months to complete their notice period, then another 2 months for them to settle in, then the next 2 months to give them chances, and then you will take a call, and then another. So you've lost 6 months in the process. I rather spend 3 months at first, and then on top of that is the momentum and the team morale. All of this goes for a toss. So we're very slow with hiring. You would have witnessed the same.
That sounds like us. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, so I think that's been the mantra, that hire slow but hire right, and don't take a long-term view on people, and handpick talent. So one thing we've done is that if I am looking for a head of product role, I will go into an organization which has really nailed product. If I'm looking for a head of operations, I will try to look for a person in an org that has done exceptionally well in operations. I will not go to a headhunter and ask them, give me operations profiles. It's something I spend way more time than anything else, because this is one activity which compounds. You get it right and you're sorted. I'll give you a very, very simple example, right? Offline marketing has been a great moat for us. And this is only because we were able to find someone who actually ran an offline marketing agency previously. I don't think what he can execute can be executed by anyone else, because he's had 2 decades of his career built in just one domain. But if I would have gotten any other offline marketing leader, it would have not worked out as well. So we probably hired him ahead of the curve, or we brought him on board ahead of the curve. And at that point, we might not have needed such a seasoned leader. But today, it's probably one of the best decisions I made. So just putting that in perspective on how it actually works out for us at Snabbit.
Speaking of taking the long-term view, I'm curious to get your view on, let's say we are having these conversations 5 years out. What does Snabbit look like?
I think Snabbit would have organized the entire services space. So a lot of the great successful startups that we now use as verbiage, right? Snabbit will be part of that. We'll be looking at an outcome that has basically redefined convenience. So we obviously, when we think of convenience, we think of groceries being delivered, we think of food being delivered. 5 years out, when we're talking about convenience, I think this will be at the top of the list.
That's great.
Powerful motto to aim for.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe last couple of things. 3 fundraisers in a year. While I guess most of this has been preemptive with you, but still I'm sure you met a lot of VCs.
No.
What has the process told you about VCs?
So I think we've not met a lot of VCs as a matter of fact. Like one of those rounds, you didn't let us meet a lot of VCs.
I'm glad.
But I think that number one, my experience on fundraising would be a little biased, I think, because fortunately we've always been in a position where we fundraise through preemptive interest. So I can understand that for a lot of other folks it might be slightly different. But I think that what it's told me a lot is that, you know, how well the process is run is a very good leading indicator of how supportive the VC would be.
Say more about that.
I have realized that in some cases, like, you know, it's at the end of the day, it's marriage in some ways, right? Like, you know, it's a professional marriage of sorts. So the way you conduct yourself on both sides, like as an entrepreneur and as a VC meeting an entrepreneur, is very important, because that gives cues for what's to entail. So I think that that's been my experience. Like when I talk to a VC, I try to be very clear, very transparent. And I will take a step back and I will probably compromise a little bit on certain, like say valuation as a metric, just to make sure I'm working with the right person and the right partner. And that for me is obviously a function of how they conduct the process. Like, you know, sometimes, you know, the timelines, sometimes, you know, no one's wanting to move first. Right? Everyone's like the first term sheet, then, you know, someone will go shopping, etc. So there are a lot of these trends. And I have seen that any VC who's genuinely interested, committed, number one, will run a very deep process. Number two, in the process of going deep, will not take and buy a lot of time. And number three, will be very transparent in communication. And you at the other end also need to hold the bargain. So you need to be very clear with data. Like, you know, we have our data rooms very, very thoroughly prepared well in advance. You need to also be very, very clear with what you want, what you expect, and at what point will you shake hands. And I think when these two things, like, you know, match, that's when, you know, you end up getting the right partner. So I think that's been my experience, that the way in which the process is conducted pre-term sheet signing is very important.
Got it.
And we have been fortunate enough to partner with folks who've been who've done that really well, and I think that has given me a lot of confidence and conviction in partnering so quickly. Because like traditionally, what we've never done is spoken to 10 VCs and run a process. We've spoken to 2-3 folks who we really think, like, you know, would add value, and gone with comfort over, like, you know, valuation multiple.
Great chatting with you, Aayush, as always. We are excited, and thank you for partnering with us. It's early days, and I think we are at the start of something really, really big. So congrats on all the progress, and look forward to working together for a few more years.
Yes, look forward as well. It's been great working with Lightspeed, and I look forward to doing this a lot more.